Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement and lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
Molly, really excited to talk to you on Lawyers Who Learn. Been spending the morning reading up on you and checking out your different sites. And I think I have a theme that I want to focus on for this episode. So thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Happy to be here.
Yep. And so what made me like pull the trigger after I think you connected with me on LinkedIn. You said the right words. First of all, you said, I love your podcast. Whether you've even watched one or not, you did the right thing. Just out of curiosity, how did you even hear the podcast? And if you just said it to say it, that's fine too. I just want out of curiosity.
Out of curiosity, I follow Gwen Griggs, and yes, so she is one of the co-owners of Advos, and I am in love with her different way to bill, different billing models. I'm always a big fan of expanding how attorneys capture their time. And so I'm a big follower of her. And so that's how she was on your podcast. And I saw that on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yeah. So, which we will get to because I do have a question. You've done a really great job in what I've seen in the past 45 minutes, at least, but you can get a lot from first impressions of branding yourself and putting yourself out there as the billing coach. So the purpose of this episode, the purpose of this podcast, it's focused on learning and lawyers who've learned through their career and how they've gone about doing that. And we try to find, you either have a theme that I want to focus on or kind of discovers itself as we start talking. And sometimes it shifts from what I want to focus on. And when I saw how well you've sort of put your brand out there, it hit me. I don't want to talk about we're going to get into like the billable hour, but I'm really more focused on how you've transitioned your career because there's so many lawyers who are in transition in some form, many who want to become a coach, many who are coaches, many who are coaches who are not potentially, I don't know how successful you are, but you give off the persona of being successful. You have a masterclass, you have individual coaching, you have you have membership, you have all these different things. So if that's okay, I would love to better understand how you've really built this coaching practice from being a litigator to now and kind of go through what you've learned through that. Does that sound like a fun episode?
100%. I love it. This is I don't rarely get to talk about it. So I'm happy that you're bringing it up and I'd love to talk about it.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So I guess, let's just level set, just give us maybe a little bit about your background and how you, even though it's out there and I've read it just so somebody can just understand how you got to where you are today, and then we can get into the coaching.
Sure. So cut me off if I go on too long.
Sure. I will take that permission if I need it.
So I started practice. I love going back to the beginning, 2008, right when the recession hit. So I had just graduated from law school. I was in San Francisco. Nobody was hiring. So I actually had to move away from my beloved San Francisco, move back to San Diego, which is actually where I'm from. And I worked as a volunteer city deputy attorney for a year, living at my mom's house, trying to get by. And it was just a really bad time to be a lawyer. Nobody was hiring. When you started, the salary was very low. So I just really struggled. I struggled from the very beginning. I finally did make my way into insurance defense litigation. I traveled back up to San Francisco with my now husband, moved to Pittsburgh. I kept practicing as a defense litigator years and years and years. And then finally, COVID, another big transition happened.
You skipped through. I think you worked at you worked at an AmLaw 100 firm. Like, how did that happen?
So I worked for Cozen O'Connor. That was the last firm that I worked for. I definitely shifted around a lot. I lateraled a lot. I never really could find my place. But in 2021, I was actually asked by a former partner that I worked with at a former firm to come to Cozen O'Connor. She thought it'd be a great fit. I was licensed in California. They had a ton of litigation work in California. So I started practicing there with her. It was fantastic. But during this time was when I was actually transitioning into becoming a life coach. And in the beginning, I was trying to help other lawyer moms with burnout, feeling overwhelmed, because that's what I initially solved. That was the problem I solved during COVID with coaching, getting my own coach, going through coach certification. And then I just,
clear, while
yeah.
you were at Cozen O'Connor, you were also at some point at night or weekends
Yeah.
taking an online course to become a life coach, I would assume.
So no, I was actually out there putting my content out there, as initially the first couple months again was for lawyer moms and burnout. But then I had an idea to become the billing coach, because what I was doing during that time, as I was actively practicing, was changing my billing habits. I was becoming better at capturing all my time, what I call the contemporaneous timekeeping model. I was getting better at not underbilling my time. I stopped confusion cutting my time. I stopped all the non-billable distractions. And I was doing this by taking all of the coaching frameworks, tools, models that I had learned, both from my own coach and from the coach certification, and applying it to my billing.
Okay. Just when did you first, I love it. I love it. I'm a huge believer in coaching. I've worked with coaches throughout my entire career. And we've even had coaches for the entire leadership team. We have a certified coach on our team who happens to be my sister, who's amazing. And we actually are launching a coaching program for Lawline. Her name, Michelle Richmond. She actually speaks all over. And it's the way I think about it. And obviously we're an online CLE company. We provide CLE courses. They're on demand. They're also live webcasts. On-demand learning can only take you so far. Coaching is where it sort of bridges that gap, because you need to ask questions. But I will tell you, I had a really interesting experience this morning, which I think is already happening. It is the future. I had an hour conversation with ChatGPT, their advanced AI model, where you can talk to it. It was unbelievable. And I recommend you, if you have ChatGPT Pro, the $20 a month, you go on, you do that. Have you ever talked to it?
So I have Claude. I used to use ChatGPT, but now I use CLAUDE. I've just found it just easier for me to use.
I don't know if Claude has the same advanced talking thing, but I used the full hour today, so I can do it. It is unbelievable in terms of because you can take it wherever you're going. It's personalized learning, but we'll get back to that. So when did you first hire? So just so I'm clear, when you were at Cozen O'Connor, you were also coaching on the side.
Yes.
Okay. And
I had told them that when I got hired.
Sure.
I said, I have this other thing going on. And they said, 100%, just make sure you get your billing in.
Right.
Make sure you get your time.
You can't hide that, right? If you're out there publicly. When did you start? Totally. When did you start getting coached yourself? Like what, this is 2020. When was your first coaching?
2020. It was June 2020. It was in March 2020. I basically was getting let go from another job. And there were interesting circumstances. Don't want to get into that. But it actually turned out they didn't fire me. And I think part of it was I had made such alliances at the firm that somebody else kind of took me under their wing and I was doing legal work for them. But during that time, I just had my moment. I said, this is it. I don't want to do this anymore. I just never found the passion that I thought I would with being a lawyer. And so I found coaching. I actually found Brooke Castillo and her Life Coach School podcast and started listening to that a ton during COVID, which I finally had the time to do it because I was at home, still working, but I definitely found more pockets of time to absorb some of the coaching content. Then I got my own private coach. So I was doing one-on-one coaching, mostly to deal with having 2 kids during COVID, very small children during COVID, litigating full-time from home, which is something very new. I was one of those in the office every day, sort of attorneys. And so it really just transformed everything. I was a philosophy major in undergrad, so a lot of the concepts just resonated really quickly.
Sure.
And that's why I jumped into certification, knew that I could help others, but that was the start of it.
How did you find your coach back then?
It was through the podcast. It was through Book's podcast. I had signed up for Scholars.
What's the name you're saying?
Her name's Brooke Castillo.
Okay.
And she actually, I don't know if she still does her life coaching certification program. I think she shut that down. But during that time, there was a lot of coaches getting certified by her, a lot of coaches learning her models, learning her coaching style, and then doing their own coaching.
Got it.
It was one of hers. Yes, it was one of her coaches.
Got it. And you ended up taking that course yourself.
And I ended up taking the coach certification and I got certified. And then it was a very slow stepping into the social media. I will say it was hard.
Well, we'll get there. Before I jump there, do you, the coach that you worked with then, are you still in touch with that coach, like as a friend?
A little bit, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, not as much.
How was that experience?
It was amazing.
Okay.
It was.
What was the actual coaching? Was it weekly? What was it? What was the actual focus of that?
So the weekly sessions were 45 minutes. Some of them were just 20 minutes. And it was like, I was good to go. I just got coaching mostly on my mindset around work. Usually it was emails that I got from a partner who I disdained, or it was, something work related. That was most of it. But then we kind of expanded into my personal life. And that's when everything just changed. So it was like personal life, professional life changed, personal life changed. My mindset around all of it changed. And then what started happening was I started actually really enjoying my practice again. And I really felt more in control, less overwhelmed. I was managing my time better. And so I found more time to start diving more into that coach certification, and then found more time to start marketing myself.
So that was your first time working with a coach, correct?
Yes.
And that was 8 weeks, 10 weeks. How long?
That was a 6-month package.
6-month package. Mm-hmm. Ballpark. How much did that cost?
$10K.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's what it costs. I mean,
at that time,
that actually sounds like a deal for 6 months. So right away you're like, oh my God, this gives me energy. This fits. I'm a philosophy major. This resonates. I can do this too, because I want to do, like, take us through that.
Yeah. During that time, it definitely took a while to be open to the possibility that I could actually do it.
Okay.
But then when I saw other coaches doing it, I was actually in Brooke Castillo's program, and she had hired like 20 coaches. And so I would see them every week. They would do coaching calls and people would get on and get coached. And so I saw other coaches doing it, and I was like, wait a minute, if they're doing it, I can do it. So,
and so were you already a member of her coaching program?
Yes.
When did you got coached individually, but then when did you decide to get certified?
I got certified starting in April 2021.
After you worked with that coach, or at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was right after. Yeah.
And I assume that's part of the program. You have to get coached first in order to get certified?
You don't have to. You can just sign up for the certification.
Okay. And how much was the certification?
$20,000.
Yeah. No, I mean,
again, big investment.
And thank you for sharing. And by the way, anytime I ask you a question you don't want to share,
I'm an open book.
You're a trained litigator, so you tell me.
Yeah.
So $20K is a big investment. You're still working in the firm. And how long was that course?
It was 6 months.
So 6 months coaching and then a 6-month course. And it was online through Zoom or whatever interface that they had, as well as on-demand programs as well.
That's right.
And you had mentioned, what stage in that era? So was there anyone else who was going to coach lawyers in that program that you knew of? And did you know you were going to coach lawyers at the time, or you weren't even sure?
I knew I was going to coach lawyers. It was kind of intuitive. I just said, I'm a lawyer. I changed how I was viewing my practice. I was getting myself out of the overwhelm. And so I knew it was going to be lawyers right from the beginning.
Got it.
Those are my people.
and so 6 months of certification, once a week, once a month?
It was once a week.
We
did an hour. Yeah.
And how many people were doing it with you at the same time?
There was 10 people in our little cohort. And we had one instructor.
Out of curiosity, are you still in touch with anyone in that cohort?
So we've tried over the years. We've tried to get together once a month on Fridays, but for the most part, we've kind of fallen off just in the last year.
Do you know if anybody else is still coaching like you?
I think one. I think everybody else may have dropped out. But again, I'm not sure. Yeah. Again,
not surprised. That's why I'm like, to see what you have. It's not usual. So, okay. So you do this cohort. Now we're in 2021, I assume.
Yes.
And you're still at Cozen O'Connor?
I'm still at Cozen O'Connor. Yeah. During that time I was at Cozen.
When did you have the light bulb moment to actually brand yours instead of just saying I'm a life coach or I'm a coach for attorneys, I'm the billing coach?
So the light bulb moment came when I was actually with one of our cohorts doing some of those Friday calls. And one of the people in there was a physician coach. She was trying to be a physician coach. And she was talking about how hard it is to chart. And I was like, yeah, it's really hard also with billing. It's like with lawyers with billing, they hate having to bill. Like I hate having to bill. And I was like, oh, that's maybe a good idea. Maybe I could coach lawyers on how to reframe their mindset around billing. But that's when I'm like, I need to do the work first and try to figure out if what I'm learning coaching wise, tool wise can really apply. And that's when it all changed. So after a couple of months of me doing the work on myself, like I said, changing my underbilling habits, not procrastinating entering time, not confusion cutting my time. When I started to get really great billing habits, then I was like, this is a thing. I can actually help other attorneys. So that's kind of when the light bulb came up. And then the billing coach, I just kind of named myself that when I started putting myself out there on social media.
I assume you went to GoDaddy or whatever, and like, is thebillingcoach.com available? And you're like, that's it. Okay. So 2021, is this still 2021 when you come up with a billing coach?
You know what? I'm not 100% sure when I decided about the billing coach. It may have been a little bit after, because it was when I was meeting with the cohorts for a couple Fridays.
Okay,
Yeah.
so take me through this first. You're certified, you have the name. How did you said you were at Cozen O'Connor, you were doing this on your own. Take us through that first 6 months, 12 months of like building take us through that. Somebody else. And again, keep in mind, imagine me, I want to do what you did. You're literally give me how do I do it? How do I just finished a certification coach. Now what do I do? I have a website even, or maybe I don't, but how do I get clients?
So the first thing that I kept telling myself was that it's okay. I have time. This is a lifelong journey that I'm starting. And so the pressure would just come off. So that was the first step. So it did take me a while to start putting myself out there. I had to actually get more and more, do more and more coaching work on myself to really give myself that chance to be like, it's okay. Now I can maybe post something on Instagram. That was the first step. My coach at the time called it, just do one garbage post. I was like, oh my God, that's so scary. I've never been on Instagram, because I wasn't on all the social medias. I had no idea. So actually, initially I did a lot of in-person networking, and man, was that hard. I had to be away from my family. I did like nights, and I wasn't with my people. And so
take me through that. So give me an example of a networking event you went to.
I went to an event in Pittsburgh, and it was a businesswoman's networking event. So maybe I met one attorney, because at the time I was a lawyer mom's, life coach. So none of my people were there.
and as you know, every time you have to communicate what you do, you're learning yourself, because you're like, that didn't sound good. That was too long. And so what was your initial, if you can remember, like, how did you try to, I'm sure it's so refined and better now, but back then, how did you I assume you stumbled trying to tell people what you do and how it stands out from anybody else. Like what were some of the things you learned from those early networking conversations that you're trying to put yourself out there?
For sure, how to feel awkward and like not let it be a problem. That was a huge thing. Just telling people I was a life coach, being an attorney, right? Going from I'm an attorney, that's my whole persona, to hi, I'm Molly Kremer, I'm a life coach, was a little bit harder. So I think for me, it did help to be like, I life coach attorneys, and people in their heads, I think they were like, oh, that makes sense. Versus I was an attorney and now I'm trying to be a life coach. It didn't make sense for people. And so for me, it was an easier transition too, to say I coached other attorneys. But one of the things that I think was really helpful was a 3-step strategy or process that I learned from Stacey Bayman. She's a life coach for other life coaches trying to build entrepreneurships. And she said, you just got to get out there and meet people, tell them who you are, and make offers to help. So that was my 3-prong. I was like, I can do that. I can get out there, meet people, tell them who I am, make offers to help. And that was it. That was my only mission in the beginning.
Just from a time frame, when did you stop working at Cozen O'Connor?
April 2024, just this last year.
Okay. So you were doing this the entire time while you were there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's a little less pressure, right? Because there at least is a job, full-time job or on there. So that's good to know. Okay, so and did you leave because the business got to a point where you're like fully ready to be doing that? Okay, cool. We'll circle back to that. All right. So when did you had mentioned, had you done any speaking at this time? Had you done any, okay. So how'd you get your first client? And were they paid or non-paid?
They were paid,
Okay.
but they stopped paying after 3 months. It was a 6-month program for 2K. And oh no, it may have been actually 3 months. But the first payment, it was great. She got a lot of help. And then when it was time to pay for the second half, because she didn't pay in full, she said, "I'm good. I learned everything." So I had learned a lesson there.
Did you remember how you got her? Because it's a big deal getting her.
Yeah. So I actually initially went on Instagram. That's where I heard coaches were, posting daily, talking about how you can help them, adding value ahead of time. So I started doing that. I want to say it was May 2022. And then it took a couple months. And at that time, I also had another coach who was helping me with the business aspect of it. And she kept saying, it could take 5 months, it could take 6 months, but you just got to keep going. You got to keep thinking it's working, putting value out. It will work. And so that was always kind of my mantra. And it did. Eventually, I got a consult. I had a little link where they could book a call with me. And that was my first client. And I sold her right on the call.
Complete the social media. You didn't know the person ahead of time.
Not at all.
Yeah. Interesting. To me, the most obvious first target would be all your relationships and your personal network and the lawyers that you worked with and your firm that you're at, other firms you worked at. So tell me about that.
Once I started getting more into the billing niche, and it's understandable, they weren't super excited that I was posting about how to help attorneys bill their time, because I think they were afraid of maybe clients seeing it and thinking, oh, this firm just cares about billing, which was not, that would be a huge misunderstanding of my coaching, but I got it. And so there was just some grumbling going on at the firm. And I offered many times. I actually offered 5 times to the CEO, and I never got, I got little hits there and there, but nothing transpired. And so there was just a lot of, I think, more pushback. I think a lot of attorneys weren't super excited for what I was doing, because billing is a taboo subject. Nobody talks about it. That's part of the problem. Nobody wants to talk about how they struggle with this simple thing like billing their time. Well, so that was a struggle.
I think it's a taboo subject in several areas because it, in a way, it's a broken model. But how do you tell a room of millionaires from at least from the AmLaw 100 that it's a broken model when, I don't know, I think they made $7 million last year, at a firm. So, but it's a model that clients are never happy. I know I've been on the other side as a client, and you see these bills and you're like, that doesn't make sense. And there's always that, as you know, the negotiation with the client and the firm, the cost is too much. I'm not going to pay that. And then you're never really paying that rate. So that from the client side, you feel like I was just surprised by that. Where you said, I guess in any size, you always feel like you're being overbilled as a client. That conversation was not 45 minutes. It was like a 10-minute conversation. I don't understand. And I was just interested that you were saying that you're underbilling because, and also what you don't talk about as well is how high the rates are, especially at these big firms. And so I think part of the thing is because they charge so much, you can't squeeze everywhere. You can't squeeze on the price. You can't squeeze on getting every last minute. And so I don't know. I was just wondering, does any of that resonate with you when you hear that? How you?
No, totally. So the way I approach it, number one, is that how I coach the attorneys who come to me is usually they come to me and they're not billing all their time. The underbilling is mostly the female attorneys I work with who have been kind of socialized to feel bad about billing a high or charging, maybe they spend 2 hours on something and they're like, ooh, that's too much time. I can't charge the client. Or I don't want the partner to think that I'm stupid. I want him to think that I can do it in an hour. So they typically underbill their time. And what happens to so many of these women attorneys is at the end of the day, they only have 5 hours when they've been sitting there for 8 and they're scratching their heads being like, well, where's all my billable time? And so what happens is then they have to overwork. They have to stay late, stay away from their families in order to make up that time that they're just unconsciously underbilling. Sometimes it's super unconscious. They don't even know they're doing it. It's a split second. Ooh, it shouldn't have been that much. And then they cut their time. And so that's what I work with the women attorneys on. But going back to your point, so that's number one. I help attorneys in that respect. But number two, I also view from the client's perspective, when they get sloppy narratives or they get like, C minus, prepare motion, the client's like, wait a minute, why am I spending, thousands of dollars? I don't understand. I need this justified. So a lot of the attorneys I work with is really beefing up their billing narratives to justify the time so that their clients can better know them, like them, and trust them all through their billing narratives. So that's a lot of the work I do with firms and clients, is to really help attorneys to see that like there is somebody reviewing this bill, and they do, the suspicion rises when it's like a prepare motion or, review and analyze documents, right? And so of course, the client's like, what's going on here? So I really help them to expand those narratives to really justify their time to the client, but also to themselves. Again, going back to those women attorneys who are like, ooh, I don't know if I can charge that much. I don't know if I can bill that much. Once they see this more detailed narrative of what they did, the value add, they will justify it to themselves. So they will bill for the full amount that they actually spent on the task, if that makes sense.
No, it does. So that leads me to wondering, who are your clients? Is it big law mostly? Is it women attorneys mostly? Can you give us a sense, and give us a sense, again, I don't need specifics, but like how many clients you generally try to work with a month, a year, a quarter, just get a sense of sort of like what that is.
Sure. So in the beginning, it was definitely mostly female attorneys. And I think it's because my marketing was aimed more because of my experience, and definitely marketing more about the underbilling, right? Not capturing all your time. But then I realized a lot of men were posting and commenting on my post. I'm like, you know what? I definitely think men struggle with this too. Maybe they're just not talking about, the fact that they struggle contemporaneously billing or billing all their time. Or cutting some of their time. So my program, I think about midway through, I really opened it up to both men and women. And so I started actually getting a lot more men, which surprised me. But right now it's about 15 one-on-one. And then I also have a group program that I'm starting. It's starting February 25th because I'm at capacity right now.
Yeah.
But typically it ranged between 10 and 15 clients one-on-one. And it's so the firm size in the beginning actually was the bigger law firms, but over time, my marketing really has hit the boutique firms and the smaller firms who really want to invest in their attorneys because there's not as much turnover at the smaller firms. And so they want to invest more in their billing habits. So these more boutique firms have been reaching out to me, 10, 15 attorneys. And so for them, I do a lot of billing workshops where I work with them as a group. And then 1 or 2 of them will come and work one-on-one with me. So it's interesting how that changed.
But just to get a sense, because I think it's to me, an important point. What percentage would you say of your clients are small to mid-sized firms right now?
At this point, 70%. It's definitely much bigger than it used to be.
And potentially, to your point, big firms are concerned about image and hiring somebody who's trying to squeeze more than they're already squeezing, which is really interesting. I noticed when I went on, so you have the billing coach, and then you have your name. I don't know if that's you Molly Kremer. Is it Kremer? How do you pronounce your last name?
Kremer. Yeah.
Kremer. Okay. I noticed you don't have any pricing on there. And is that something I would ask, because it's an important question. Is that something you share, sort of what you charge, or in ballpark numbers where it is, just to get a sense?
So for sure, when they get on a consult with me, I made that very strategically from the beginning because I wanted to get better at selling my program. I wanted to get better at conveying the value of it. So instead of people just seeing the price and being like, oh, that's too much, they have to get on a call with me in order to find out about my program, how it can help. And then I give them the price. And if they have any objections to it, like it's really helped me to figure out what's keeping them from changing their billing habits. Sometimes it is the price, but sometimes it's something else. Sometimes it's the time commitment, or they've never invested in coaching before, so they don't know how it works. So instead of just giving the price, I want them to, come and talk to me and tell me all the things so that I can help them decide whether or not they really do want to invest and want to do it. So
is that something you do share what the price is?
Yes. Yeah.
Would you share it now? What it is?
Oh, sure. So for the one-on-one coaching,
I should have been more clear.
Yeah, it's $3,500.
Okay.
And for some attorneys, they're like easy.
$3,500 for how long?
4 months, one-on-one with me, weekly sessions. And also
very, like, I don't know.
I agree.
What's that? What does that hourly rate break down to? You figured it out.
You know what? No, I haven't. I don't even know the hourly rate. Yeah. In the beginning, I think when I was charging $2,000, I think it was $165 an hour. But then as I increased my price, I'm like, it's really not about the time, right? It's really just about, I don't know. I just felt so comfortable in the value I was giving, and more of the value is not just the one-on-one. I give them all my coaching resources, videos, masterclasses, workshops, billing resources, and I have a membership vault they get lifetime access to. So I would say
$3,500 for 4 months, weekly coaching.
Yes.
I think you should double your rates.
I know. I've heard that. That would take more mental mind work.
But it's also, it's easy for me to say that's not I'm not doing it. So, let's talk about it. It's a very crowded space. Tell me.
Not for me. There's no other billing coach.
Well, but there's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of coaches for attorneys that, at the end of the day, you're teaching techniques to deal with stuff. And and at the end of the day, there's really nothing new out there, right? There's like I saw some of the YouTube videos. You're like, instead of procrastinating to the end of the month, you do it right away. Which it's good to hear and you need to hear. Then obviously there's more to that. And a lot of it you said, like I've worked with, I work with a woman named Kim Addis. She has a company called Frame of Mind Coaching, transformed my life. I wrote a book in 2019. Part of it was about the coaching experience. And then we hired a coach called Mark Green from Scaling Up. It's similar to EOS, Entrepreneurs Organization, where we built systems and structures and accountability in our business. And we had a coach for the leadership team, and that transformed my business. And Frame of Mind, you're in philosophy major. Like obviously the two things that we all get from back in philosophy is there's only two things you can control: how you think and how you feel. And all coaching is essentially one form of a derivation of that. And then there's going there. And because of that, again, I commend you. It is really hard from my seat to build a sustainable and strong coaching program. So so again, commend you on that. And so you got your first, if we can go back in time, you got your first coach, your first client. How did things go from that to today, I guess? Like what, and again, keep in mind, I'm that hypothetical person who just got certified. I was a litigator too, let's say, because there's a lot, and I'm ready to not compete with you or whatever. It's a full space. I'm ready. And maybe I just got my first client. It went okay. Maybe they left too, right? It didn't go or I did it for free. How do I turn that into an amazing practice that you have today?
Yeah, I always never made it a problem. I never made it a problem that she didn't renew. I didn't make it mean anything went wrong. If anything, I was like, actually, this is helping me. It will help me. Maybe I can't see it right now, but this will help me to keep going in the future. And now I'm going to charge a full rate. Just make it a problem that she didn't renew, or she didn't pay the second half.
But you said no problem. Go ahead. Like you didn't give her
absolutely trouble. No, not at all. And I didn't give myself the trouble. I didn't think about it and dwell on it and tell myself it's not working. I kept telling myself that now, okay, what do I want to do going forward? I want to charge the full amount, but that's going to take me getting really clear
full amount
and
upfront.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's what it taught me. It was like, I get it. Like when you need to renew and pay more money and maybe,
Yeah.
and actually it showed me that she already got the results in less than 3 months. So I'm like, maybe I'm doing a great job,
Yeah.
but I'm still going to keep the 3 month container. I'm still going to charge 2,000, but now there's no payment plan. So I
Yeah.
got really good at selling the 2,000. I got a lot of no's, but I also got a lot of yeses. And that's when things started changing. So really that first client lose, if you want to call it a lose, helped me create my whole practice, my whole business. Because then I started really getting good on consults, really helping attorneys see how they really can, if they work with me, transform their billing habits in 3 months. And yes, it's an investment, but think about all the money invested in law school, right? That was like one of the arguments that I would come up with. It's like you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now there's this part of your practice that you hate to do. So many attorneys hate that they have to capture every, 0.6 of their time all day. And so spending at that time, it was $2,000 to fix this problem. I was like, that's a no-brainer. How much would you want to pay for it? $2,000? Sure, here. So that's how it happened.
Totally. And what I find for me when I'm struggling to pay $2,000 on something, it's less about that. I know there's value. It's more that I don't believe I have the time, or I'll put the time in to get the value. Do you find that is the argument? Like, it's like, I can tell you,
especially for attorneys.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so one of the ways I talk to them is that I will help you also with time management, because that was a big thing that I learned. In order to create my coaching business, I had to get really good at managing my time, managing my calendar. And so that's usually what I tell them if they bring up a time objection. Right.
Okay. So, oh God, I have so many questions for you. Out of curiosity, do you do speaking?
I'm trying to. I have mostly the speaking I do is workshops for law firms. I've done some in-person retreats, law firm retreats. But mostly the speaking I do is the billing workshop that I give to law firms. I've done almost 24 of those over the last 6 months, actually.
And that I saw, I think on your site, you've got CLE credit for that.
Yes, which is amazing. Yeah.
And have you ever taught that online, or you don't want to because then it would take away from it?
A little bit. So I always love the engagement. I like it when the firms can get all of the attorneys to like show up and be on that. It's CLE credits. You have to show up and get the little CLE code. I like that better than, having a course. I'm open to the idea. I have done a 6 weeks to stress-free billing course. I launched it 3 times. That was really successful.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing my 3-month billing mastery mentorship group coaching program. I love the live aspect. I love weekly calls live. It just has an accountability factor. When you don't have one-on-one coaching, having it live versus every week they have to watch a pre-recorded, but still they'll get the information. I just think there's a little bit of a shift when you show up live and listen versus watching a recording.
And that's on February 25th. It's launching.
February 25th.
What is it?
No, I'll be launching soon, probably in the next week or two. It starts February 25th. The program starts.
What do you mean you'll be launching soon? I'm confused.
Oh, so I call my launching of like emailing my marketing campaign.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I get it. And how much does that cost?
That's $695.
Okay.
So another steal.
I'll try to speed this up because we have a bunch of podcasts we put it on, but that this airs before that. So you can say, look, I'm vulnerable too. I share how I started.
Yeah.
Is this going okay for you so far? I hope
100%.
so.
I love this. I'm loving these questions. I never get to talk about this.
Well, so because it is the hard part of that. It's a part that it's a conversation nobody talks about, right? I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I
did watch your TEDx talk.
Cool.
I did, and I loved it. And I was like, oh man, when you walked out, when that attorney yelled at you and you were talking about that, and you're like, I'm never going back. I was like, man, how many times have I had attorneys yell at me over years and years? I wish I had that. I'm never going back.
That was a double whammy. Because first he yelled at me, and then I went downstairs and I started crying. Then I called my dad. Yeah. And my dad's like, well, you didn't keep your commitment. I'm like, no. What are you talking about? And then I'm like, oh, maybe my dad's right. And so, but to your point, and the best part is they end up becoming a client of ours. So, or a faculty.
That's the best.
But it did transform me completely. Yeah. It's what made me at least realized I didn't want to work for somebody, at least, and never treat somebody like that. Like, even if,
Yeah, it's out there in the legal community.
I mean, it's just, it is what it is. And I don't, this is so long ago. I haven't even spoke to him since. And he was a good guy. That's how we handled it. All right. So, but just so I can understand the next, where you said, and I love that soundbite you had, you're like, kept going, got a lot of yeses. And you're like, that's when things took off. Like if we were doing a TV show, that would be like a clip. And
Awesome.
those yeses were those all still from Instagram?
So no, they started transitioning to LinkedIn. When I started to post on LinkedIn, a coach I was following, who also went to the same coaching certification school, Olivia Vizacro, I started following her, seeing her content and being like, oh, you can post on LinkedIn like this, right? Like a coach can get on LinkedIn. It was kind of blowing my mind. I thought it was just talking to, like, celebrating moving to different firms. And like, I didn't know it was a content platform at all. And then when I saw her do it, I was like, all right, I'm following her playbook. And so I started posting about it. And it still took a couple of months.
Of course. And so these are all still strangers, like not referrals. These are all strangers.
Not referrals, all strangers.
Did referrals start coming? Did it turn into referrals? Not really.
Not really, because nobody wanted to talk about that they had to get a billing coach to help them with their bad billing habits. So most of my clients are from LinkedIn. I always ask on the consult, how did you find me? Referral, LinkedIn. And I really don't post too much on Facebook and Instagram because my people aren't on there as much, or maybe I haven't found them there. But LinkedIn, I just kept posting every other day, some kind of value add, something I could help attorneys with their billing. And then at the very end, right, it's meet people, tell them who you are, make offers to help. I always made an offer to help. As like salesy sometimes as it felt, I would always put a little link of like, reach out and, we can set up a consult. I
started going through your posts in a few minutes before I spoke, just kind of scrolling through really quick. One thing I liked was your sort of 2024 in review that it said you use coauthorstudio.com. Could you just tell me about that? Like, I want to do that. Like, so what was that?
So I am in a group pod now. And by the way, if you're ever wanting to get more of your content out, the algorithms on LinkedIn, being in a group pod and having people support your post, comment on your post. So I'm in 3. I'm in a lawyer one, I'm in a life coach one, and I'm in another one. I don't know, I'm forgetting, but mostly the lawyer one is the one that I engage with the most. And so they engage with my content, and that helps the algorithm. So LinkedIn will push out your content to more eyeballs. But I heard about it. We have a little chat, and one of the lawyers said, hey, Authored Up is a great way to find out which posts do the best. Gives you really good stats about them. And also you can create like multiple posts on there and upload your picture, everything, and then just press post, or you can time your posts on there. I don't know. I really enjoyed it to have all my posts in one place if I do multiple ones before the week.
Okay. Mind blown for a second. So you're not posting directly on LinkedIn. You're posting through a platform.
Yeah, it's an extension. So it comes out of LinkedIn, and I can actually write the post in there. It's a Chrome extension. Yes.
It's called, what is it called?
Authored Up.
Authored Up. And does it cost anything?
Gosh, I think total $219 a year is what I got. It was,
but it's an extension because, on LinkedIn, you can schedule it, but you can't really see what's scheduled.
That's right. Right.
So totally. Here, schedule, and then it takes you to a website where you can see what's scheduled, or it's all through the extension. Like you have to pop down.
It's a pop down. You have to like see it through the extension.
Got it.
But I like it because it has a bold factor. Like you can bold things. You can't do that in LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's funny.
You can italicize. Yeah, little things like that. It's like little things.
In the URL, it said coauthor.studio. Is that something separate where it did like the review of 2024, or is that through this extension as well?
So no, that was different. There was another coach who did it. I saw it on her post and I'm like, that's cool. So all I did was I put my URL for the billing coach in, and it automatically generated after like an hour or something, that post that I did. The little picture, it generated that.
Yeah.
And
you put your post URL in there and it did that.
I put my billing coach LinkedIn URL.
Yeah. So interesting. And that's free too, or not? It costs money?
That was free. I just thought that was a fun thing.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I don't yet have a strategy and I don't have a pod. I just post my daily musings on there. So if I don't know, like for me, the way I describe it, and actually it's like I do public journaling in a way. Like if you look at what I wrote today, it has nothing to do with, like, I'd say 1/3 is about Lawline or law or legal tech. And then 2/3 is more about like observation, usually mindset or personal development from observations. And I would love hundreds of likes. Usually they get between 10 to 15 or 1,500 impressions, which is what I look at. Sometimes they blow up, but obviously if I was a coach, I would be more geared towards that. And I was going to ask you, because now it makes sense, because I did see a lot of like emojis and other things like in bold. Are you also using Claude to help you with your posts?
For sure.
Yeah.
That's been recent. I have a marketing team that introduced me to Claude literally 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, my mind is blown. I actually created for my clients an AI billing prompt where it's pages and pages from Claude prompts you can put into Claude to help you with your narratives.
Yeah.
To actually help create really robust, good narratives. Because I'm always like, the how is not really what I teach. It's like 10% of my program. Most of what I teach, 90% is the mindset in order to show up and bill your time. So I'm always like, use AI. AI is amazing. It could really help with your narratives. So Claude, for sure, I usually, like in the last couple of weeks, I've been putting in old posts that I've done maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it will help me kind of rebrand it, come up with new ideas, new content, and then I'll go in and make it my tone of voice and obviously add more of my coaching method, the model, all of that into it. But it's been amazing, especially with my email marketing campaigns.
Well, and you can see it when you look at posts in general. You can see they've all leveled up in the past year.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible? Totally. You're like, wow, their writing has gotten much better. Their copy is incredible. So for me, it's been the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
If you go back 4 weeks from then, you will see there is a little bit of a shift.
Totally. And that's why for me, I like, even though I'm using Claude or ChatGPT, what's important is I'm talking about my personal experiences, like, whether it's travel or public speaking or trying to run Lawline or being on the board of YPO or running a podcast. It's if I'm just talking about 5 things that you need to do to feel better about yourself, I think that's so generic that anyone can do that now. So for me, it has to tie to something that I've done or am doing. So, because if it's cleaned up a little bit, like I did an 8-week program with a coach where I did I did a whole stand-up routine in the New York Comedy Club in December. And so that was, by the way, it's better than therapy doing that, because it's all self-deprecating humor. And it was amazing. And so I posted about that and I got like 100 likes. And I was like, wow, this is cool.
I've noticed that with my posting too. If it's more about me and like my struggle, it's so much better. But man, it's so much harder to
that doesn't convert
on every post. It's hard.
Too much.
But
just to get a sense, what is your timing? Because I can go on for 5 hours with you just to get a sense what your cutoff.
So at noon, I have the billing hour. So the billing hour is an hour for all my one-on-one clients. And I actually am going to open up to anyone who signs up for the Billing Mastery Mentorship Group Program. But it's 1 hour. Everybody has their muted video off, but it's a time to catch up on their billing. Because as my clients learn the contemporaneous timekeeping model, I'm always saying progress, not perfection. You're still going to have billing backslides. Come, if you have questions about narratives, I can help you. But it's an hour of attorneys kind of being in the same community, understanding that there's a lot of attorneys who struggle with contemporaneous.
How many people sign up for that? How many people join that usually?
Only like 5 or 6 out of right now I have 16 clients.
And everyone's on mute, just doing their.
Everyone's on mute. I'm not. I'm on camera. But I'll get some questions in the chat. How do I bill for this? Right.
Okay.
And so
I'm glad I asked, because you do need a break.
We could do another session sometime.
Let me turn this to you. I'll give you the last word. Do you have? I feel like I've been interrogating you for a while. Is there any questions that you have for me? I'll give you the last question. If not, we can just sort of end there and say we're going to be continued about Lawline, about mindset, about coaching? I don't know. Anything that comes to mind from this conversation?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about it a lot after watching your TED Talk. I know that you started in sales, right? You started an entrepreneur. You were trying to do a couple of that. Then you went to law school, as we all do when things fail, or like, I don't know what to do next, right? I was a philosophy major, graduated. I'm like, okay, now what? Another, right? And back then
Yeah.
they didn't have coaching, so it
Yep.
wasn't right, because coaching really is a practical philosophy. So of course went to law school. So for you, I was always like, it's pretty incredible. You went through law school, right? I mean, you were at the very end and you were
Yeah.
doing an internship, and it was this one experience. And then you were just like, no, absolutely not. I was like, I have been in that experience 30 times at least throughout my career, and I never said no. I was like, I want that. How did you
Yeah.
have the like, nope, not doing this. I'm not putting up with people yelling at me. It was like my mind was blown by that. And then you started this incredible next chapter of your life, and then everything took off. So
Well,
I just am fascinated by that.
yeah. I mean, certainly I can't answer that in a minute, but I could tell you
Yeah.
there was never no like, it's very easy looking back to have the narrative and say, when that happened, I said, I'm never doing that. Did I actually say that to myself at that moment? No, I just took little steps to move myself in a different direction. And I didn't try to do this. Like I'll just say three things and then I'll leave it at that. That was defining, but there's actually even a more defining moment for me in law school. It was my second year. I had made moot court. I worked really hard to make moot court. I go to the award ceremony. They're calling everyone on the stage. They didn't call me on stage. I go up to the student organizer. I'm like, you guys didn't call me on stage. No big deal. I just want to let you know. She's like, oh my God, we forgot to tell you. You actually didn't make it. They messed up on the calculations. You're not in it. And I'm like, okay, my family's here. It's a student organization. You got to let me, like, and she's like, you're 1 point off. I'm like, just let me in. This is ridiculous. And they wouldn't. Started crying again. The whole thing was I was trying to build an organization for myself to be part of something for my resume. And instead, what I realized I could just build it on my own. So I started what was a first podcast. I started a public access TV show interviewing entrepreneurs, trying to figure out how they started their own business. And this is in 2006. And now we're into 2025. Yeah, I restarted this a year ago, or no, I'm sorry, in December or whatever, November, for one reason only. And we'll end on this. My life completely changed and shifted when I started doing that interviews and podcasts, and put me on the direction that I'm in now. So I was curious, if I start interviewing amazing people like you, what will the direction and shift be for me over the next few years?
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So thank you for being part of it. Thank you for taking a leap of faith. This won't be the last time we speak. You probably said in the beginning, you're in San Francisco now still, or no? No,
I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow. To be continued. To be continued. All right. Take care. Thanks so much.